as humans, I feel like even within RWS, people will make their own restricted laws of you cannot end up feeding animals only. Every single society across Delhi, Gurgaon, and Delhi NCR rather, this is a very common thing. They'll end up laying out their own. At the end of it, you're living on in a land of law, right? And by the end of it, like a lot of RW people will be fighting around. The president is like, you can't end up feeding the dogs. They'll relocate it. We need to step up. We cannot end up just putting our hands up over there saying, हमको तो भाई जानवर पसंद ही नहीं है, तो भैया at the end of it, you are an animal lover. You go out and do all the jobs, right? I think like the way Gandhi ji said that a nation is defined by the way they treat their animals and women. So I think we have a long way to go. Things are definitely getting better, but I feel like as humans, we really need to take in the responsibility, not brush it off.
Hi, my name is Dev Tyagi and I welcome you all to What's Up Live on YouTube. At a time where you're still very likely to bump into PJs in our country, such as what will happen if Lara Datta was to marry Brian Lara? Will that alliance be called Lara Lara? I want to direct your attention today towards a different alliance of sorts. An alliance between a beauty with brains, but importantly, also heart. And what are we human beings at the end of the day without any heart? So I am privileged and honored and very happy and very joyful today to be talking to Nikita Yadav, a girl who has exemplified passion, compassion, intelligence, emotional growth, and that important thing called purpose in life. I want to welcome Nikita here. And Nikita, what a pleasure it is.
So much, Dev. I mean, this is the sweetest introduction possible, and I'm probably here because of that. Thank you so much. Pleasure, yeah, pleasure.
No, the pleasure is really ours. So I don't know how to exactly explain Nikita, the versatile, multi-dimensional person that we have here today. And cliches be damned, I would simply say that she has a trained commercial pilot's license, but that's not the field of operation where it comes to profession. So she has dedicated her life, the purpose of which is towards conserving and going out of her way really towards working towards animal welfare, which is, I think, a rarity in sorts. Because, at the end of the day, your life is not really yours if it is not directed towards a good cause. So Nikita, my first question to you is...
Yes.
So you are from the Air Force background. Your father served
I'm a Fauji bacha.
Your father served the country for 25 years in the Indian Air Force. And then you have a degree in commercial pilot. You have that license degree. Mm-hmm. And now you have dedicated your life towards animal conservation. How did this drastic change come about?
Yeah, to be very honest with you, I think animal welfare has been a part of my life right since I was a little kid. I think it's not something that I just grew up and then I sort of started looking into it and, trying to create whatever positive change I possibly can. When I was a little girl, I feel like the kind of compassion that my parents, instilled in both me and my sister for that matter. We used to feed when I was a little baby girl also, right? When I was barely 7-8 years old. Nowadays, I see a lot of parents who will be like, kutte ko mat chuo, dur rahe, wo kaat denge, all of that stuff. So basically, I grew up in a background where I felt like my parents, they came with a lot of compassion and empathy, right? And even their parents would end up ensuring that they gave back to the society. So animal welfare, I feel like when you ask me the question of where did it start, I feel like it's been a part of my life since I was a little girl. I remember going to my grandparents' place. Every time I would, end up landing in, my grandfather would end up making sure, especially khana banta tha. I remember he used to stay in Kolkata, right? So we'd go get mishti doi, we would end up carrying dog food with us. And I would end up, literally with him, feeding all the street dogs around his place. And again, like I see a lot of parents today who actually end up pulling their kids away. I feel like organically kids don't have hatred towards animals or they're not scared towards it, right? When you organically see a kid, their inherent nature is to end up wanting to go and touch. And while I feel like you need to safeguard them and kind of protect them and let them know that you need to end up respecting boundaries and also teach the kids to coexist, right? So I feel like these are things bachpan se hi, even my parents for that matter. What my parents basically learned from their parents, eventually even my father, when my father was in the Air Force, I remember in the afternoons, like we used to have a staff quarter, right? So every time I would come back from school, I had a little cycle. I would come back and I would see our staff, how they would end up, Didi would make roti and stuff like that. And every time Mama would bring atta and come, and we would come back from school at about 2 and I used to have my tuitions at 4 o'clock. So I would literally end up coming back probably within 3-4 days, atta ghar mein khatam. And everyone's trying to figure out, Mama's going to the help and telling, Didi, hamara atta khatam ho gaya, wo kha gaya. Nobody knew. For those 1 hour in the afternoon from 2 to 3, I used to basically belo, like whatever sense of, rotis I could possibly make, get it onto my cycle. I would go around feeding all the stray dogs, feeding all the cows. So as a kid, I feel like just from my parents' side also, just the way they kind of pushed and they I mean, I always say a lot of people gonna scare their kids with respect to you need to, don't touch an animal, it's gonna bite you. I feel like humans bite way harder. We still give them a second chance, right?
That's well said.
So at the end of the day, I feel like we all are put on this planet together and we need to end up understanding the art of coexisting, yeah. And just respectfully so. So I feel like it's completely instilled since I was a little baby girl. So it's been a very integral part of my life since I was a bacha.
So I find something particularly disturbing, for the lack of better word,
Yeah.
especially when I hang out on Twitter, which now Elon Musk has renamed X, and why not? So day in, day out, there are these pictures and videos and stuff like that where animal cruelty is out there, and I'm glad that people are highlighting it, they're showcasing it. Just yesterday, I was drawn to one of the interesting facets about our country, and perhaps something which should be given greater attention than already given. So, in 1960, which is, well, eight and a half decades back in
Absolutely,
time,
yes.
the country came out with the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. But just how often do people really care about, the implications of it? And I'm talking about the kind of violence which we show towards dogs, especially dogs, cats, but dogs especially.
Yeah.
So what do you have to say to that?
So basically, I think right from the beginning, I was trying to do whatever I could on an individualistic level. But over a course of time, I think I definitely ended up realizing that you need authority here, right? And at the end of the day, PFA is the biggest organization in our country at this stage. And I kind of got on board. I'm a volunteer though. I'm a member of PFA, which kind of gives you a card of authority so you can sort of go bash people. So, at the end of the day, I felt like that lack of authority is what was required, which is why I sort of, intertwined with the organization. And they're doing some really, really incredible work out there. So I feel like just for people to take you a little more seriously, because I don't think when it comes to human conflicts, I feel like that's, there's a certain sense of seriousness towards that, right? But when you end up coming down to an animal welfare situation or an issue, I think that's not taken very seriously. So you definitely need kisi ka ashirwad on top. So
Right.
PFA definitely would be that for me.
Right.
Yeah.
So the standard operating procedure of this podcast in terms of languages is English, Hindi, and woof woof. Which brings me to the next point.
Yeah.
Your passion for dogs.
Yeah.
क्योंकि मैंने अभी तक I think अनगिनत posts देखी हैं Instagram पे and other social media channels of yours.
Yeah.
And I think 3 in 5 or 4 in 5 are with regards to dogs.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you were not part of the movie called Must Love Dogs. But having said that, and thanks for tolerating this period. Sorry guys, you can kill me
We
later.
loved it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to ask you,
Yeah.
what is it about dogs? The fascination with dogs.
I think they are our best friends, yeah. I feel like for anybody who doesn't really end up, keeping a dog in their lives, or rather, I mean, just being in that environment with an animal, I feel like you'll just never know unconditional love. I feel like every human, I mean, at the end of the day, obviously we've had enough experiences of interactions with humans and stuff like that, and obviously interactions with animals as well. The selflessness, I mean, कोई स्वार्थ ही नहीं उनमें at the end of the day, right? You give them love, you give them food, you may not give them food. At the end of the day, like, I literally have friends across the streets, right? I'll randomly go on to the footpath, I'll sit with them, chill for a bit, randomly meet a, litter of dogs, sit there for an hour, maybe not give them anything to eat as well. I'll be engaging with them, and then I go back to meet them probably after 5 days. They'll remember me. They'll come with the same, love and, the loyalty. And I feel like that's something that's lacking with humans. Let's be honest
Right.
about it. That depth and that unconditional love that you end up seeing. I feel like over here, you could not be giving anything to that animal but love. And that's all they're seeking. So it's very, very unconditional and it's very, very pure. And I feel like aaj ke time pe, let's be honest about it. Everybody, until unless you can be of use to somebody, people want to sort of associate or engage. But with them, I feel like that selflessness is something that I, crave and I seek. And now I feel sorry for people who in this lifetime honestly don't get to see the love of an animal. So they're
Right.
my best friends, yeah.
But this is an onerous journey of sorts, when you say about, of course, it's a journey which is laden with compassion.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about zindagi mein compassion. आपको compassion होना बहुत ज़रूरी है, for the lack of a better expression.
Yeah.
So you would describe yourself as a animal rights protector, not like a rights activist.
Yeah, yeah.
So animals, that's a larger trajectory. So you've done a lot of social welfare work for animals who are not just dogs. Am I right?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Like gotten cows into our cars, and see, at the end of the day, the cause is to end up ensuring that you don't leave an animal in distress. That's it. If you see an animal, अगर मेरे को आंखों के सामने दिख रहा है there's an animal suffering at the end of the day, I'm not going to be like, I'm sorry, I'm somebody who, a human with a soul. At the end of it, I feel like your superpower is that you're a human and you can end up bringing out the difference. You can't expect that animal to be calling up the ambulance and being like, you know, I've gotten hit over here, come and pick me up or whatever. Now, unfortunately, I feel like a lot of human beings fail there, right? You've hit an animal, it could happen किसी से भी हो सकता है, right? But at the end of it is, what are you doing to end up correcting that mistake of yours? So unfortunately, मैं हमेशा वही बोलती हूँ, उल्टी कोई और कर रहा है, साफ हमें करना पड़ता है, right? So that's the whole deal. I feel like at the end of the day, any animal that I end up seeing in distress, now thankfully, since I've been doing this for the last, I guess, 14 to 15 years, right? Actively. So I feel like now, in case if directly I can't end up helping in, I have a good network of friends who, you know, I can end up on a day when I can't end up executing it, I'll get them to do it. But basically, be it absolutely any animal, yeah, at the end of it, we are on this planet to end up ensuring their safety and for them to end up, you know, they're literally at our mercy. So at the end of the day, just not to fail them there.
Right.
So that's that.
So in some ways, you know,
Yeah.
truth be told, the essence of life somewhere at least has to be that you have to live a life beyond numbers. Because of course, we're all chasing some kind of numbers, you know, the end effort of any kind of a content produced in this day and age has to be chasing likes, retweets, reactions, everything. But then the essence of life has to be that it has to be a life which is beyond numbers. Of course, at the end of the day, whether you make a podcast, whether you write an article, which, well, people aren't really reading so much nowadays, or whether you do a Instagram live interaction, we're all chasing numbers in some way or the other. Mr. Elon Musk is chasing the sales of Tesla cars, and why not? It's such an amazing product. You know, politicians are chasing vote banks, and voters are chasing amazing politicians. And I really hope that in this birth we are going to find a lot many of them. But I want to just direct your attention to a fact that to have a purpose in life is one thing, and then you require a certain body of work and some support and some ashirvads from top that can enable you to achieve this wholesome purpose. And by wholesome purpose, I mean conserving dogs, saving their life, and safeguarding just you know their basic right of living. So what are the kind of hurdles or the lack of any that you face in this direction?
I think most importantly, like the way I said, that you are a human, you are a superhuman. At the end of the day, the animals are at our mercy, right? So firstly, at the end of the day, we all put on the planet to end up coexisting beautifully, which is a challenge in today's times. Because I feel like the way I said, the houses are getting bigger, the hearts are getting smaller, and I mean,
the roads are getting narrower.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like everybody needs to end up owning up to their responsibilities. At the end of the day, these are community animals. It's on each one of us to end up actually ensuring their, bettering their life on the streets. So I feel like unfortunately there's this demarcation of like animal haters versus animal lovers, and aapko agar, you know, if you end up trying to help an animal, it's like I might be feeding 20 dogs outside my house, जो मैं अपनी शिद्दत से कर रही हूँ. But at the end of the day, if every human starts feeding every dog, I think it will become a little less responsibility on me, right? People will put their hands up. Good people who are trying to bring a good impact in the society and a change. आप ये कुत्ते अपने घर के अंदर ले लो बैठ करके. At the end of it, there are laws laid out for animals also. They also have equal right to end up living. They're anyways fighting it out on the streets, right? So people basically just owing up to their responsibility. NGOs are also chock-a-block with responsibility of so many cases every day. And I feel like I'll get calls from people who will be like, oh, you know what, हमारी गाड़ी से एक dog को लग गया है, तो अब आप किसी को भेज दोगे help करने के लिए. At the end of the day, you are a human being. You have access to end up, you know, figuring out what you can order on Swiggy and all of that bit. You cannot end up figuring out an animal ambulance. You're literally living at the mercy of other people. आपके पास खुद गाड़ी है नहीं जी, हमारे पास पैसे नहीं है. We don't have, हमारे पास पैसे नहीं है to end up. So basically people, I mean, you're injuring animals. At the end of it, you've left, like the way I said, दूसरों की उल्टी आप दूसरे लोग साफ कर रहे हैं. And at the end of it, I don't think that's fair. As humans, I feel like even within RWS, people will make their own inflicted laws of you cannot end up feeding animals only. पुराने ज़माने में
that kind of a nonsense also happens.
I mean, that is the most unfortunate bit that is happening, and I feel like every single society across Delhi, Gurgaon, and Delhi NCR rather, this is a very common thing. They'll end up laying out their own. At the end of it, you're living in a land of law, right? You can't be sitting around making your own laws over here.
So far, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
We are एक boundary है law की.
Yeah. And by the end of it, like a lot of RW people will be fighting around. The president is like, you can't end up feeding the dogs. They'll relocate it. I mean, while there are very, weak laws for animals, there are also laws for animals, which at the end of it, if you execute, those are illegal things to do. So people will literally, अपने आप घर बनाए जा रहे हो जहाँ से that dog's been on that land for the last 10 years, 12 years, older dogs. The entire society, we want a stray-free society. We want a stray-free society. please, for all I care, but what is the plan B of trying to get them to a secure place, right? At the end of it, in that entire area, they've been there on the land before you ended up coming in. So I feel like just coexisting. Secondly, the population of strays that's increasing, right? Delhi itself has close to 11,000 stray animals, and at the end of it I feel like individual rescuers, individual feeders, individual like NGOs are also doing the best they possibly can, but I feel
But
like
there's a certain limit to which they can do, which is where you mean to say, you allude to the fact
Absolutely.
that the humans, we have to shoulder
We need
more
to step up.
responsibility.
It's as simple as that. We need to step up. We cannot end up just putting our hands up over there saying हमको तो भाई जानवर पसंद ही नहीं है तो भैया at the end of it you are an animal lover, you go out and do all the jobs, right?
So essentially, what Nikita is saying is that you animal lovers don't just while away your time watching this amazing movie called Animal. Work towards animal welfare.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
That almost
Please get your
sound-
dogs sterilized. Please get your community dogs vaccinated. I think, like the way Gandhi ji said, that a nation is defined by the way they treat their animals and women. So I think we have a long way to go. Things are definitely getting better, but I feel like as humans, we really need to take in the responsibility, not brush it off.
Don't brush it off.
Yeah.
Speaking of hygiene and brushing, we are not going to brush off a very important segment of our conversation as we proceed further. You're also more than a fitness enthusiast. You've directed several years of your life towards your working out, your gymnasium, and making some exciting videos around it. So
I try.
how do you dabble with
Yeah.
multiple interests? So there is fitness, there is animal conservation, you have a commercial pilot's license, and which is why I was saying versatility is an intrinsic feature, and cliches be damned, you are versatile, damn. How do you do it?
एक ही life है देव.
So Nikita, I want to ask
Yeah.
you a very straightforward but a very innocent question, don't mind me
Yes.
asking. So the prevalent trend across the country, maybe, if that's fair to say, is that buy dogs, buy pets, and that's the first way. But in the last few months, at least that I've seen, there has been a clarion call to adopt pets, adopt dogs, for instance. So do you think that's the right way to go? And if so, why?
So I feel like honestly, I don't know about right and wrong, but this is the only way that should be for everybody. Now, for a lot of people on my social media also, I constantly try and push out as much as I possibly can in terms of the information regarding breeding, right? Now, unfortunately, in India, we do not have a legal breeding system, right? There's not a right way to end up doing it. That is also animal cruelty of a different level altogether, which honestly, for a lot of people, like a lot of my friends who've bought breeds back in the days, when they've actually exposed themselves to the posts that I've ended up putting in, they're like, bro, we didn't know about that, right? And the next time around, when they've considered wanting to end up getting another pet home, they've ended up, considering adoption. So I feel like the breeding system in itself is so messed up. It's so messed up if you actually just end up seeing the way it is done. There are illegal breeders in like tiny villages who don't have the right environment to end up taking care of a pregnant mother. At the end of it, you need to end up understanding for them it's just production, right? It's like
So the
you're literally just
mothers
making-
here are
Yeah.
subjected to being some child, the dog manufacturing factories.
So that's it. That's what they're looking at. At the end of the day, they're like, boss, हमको उससे पैसा बन रहा है. 5 puppies, 6 puppies. They keep the mother tied up the entire time. She's not got proper medical aid, not proper vaccination in time. Probably once the puppies, are born, they end up, taking them away from the mother. Ideally, the bachas are supposed to be with the mother for 45 days, right? To end up having a healthy life beyond. They are not bothered. At the end of the day, they're kept in the shittiest basements possible, in dingy places. At the end of the day, they are hit. If they have maggot wounds, I've literally rescued animals who have maggot wounds across their body and they're pregnant. You get my point? They're lactating like nobody's business. There's no medical aid. That's the entire deal. I feel like a lot of people are blindsided to it. They don't want to see it. But at the end of the day, I feel like encouraging breeding is probably one of the, it's worse than any cruelty I possibly have seen, right? For 7-8 years, that mother who can end up conceiving, every 6 months she comes on heat, she's impregnated. At the end of the day, by the end of it, the babies are happening. They're not kept in proper medical conditions, not in a good environment. A pregnant mother needs a proper environment to end up living through, right? They are raped to end up getting them to get pregnant by the end of it. Like forcefully, there are videos of backyard breeders that reach me, and I try and put out as much as I possibly can so that people kind of expose themselves out there. Or hum khud desi hai yaar. Like, why are we so shameful about, there's the status or stigma attached to end up adopting an indie, or it's probably not cool for a lot of people. And I'm like, boss, हम खुद देसी और हमको खुद देसी बच्चा रखने में problem हो रही है at the end of it. We should take pride. आज के time पे literally people are like make in India and, homegrown brands and all of that bit. When it comes down to animals, why is that bias happening? And to be really honest, like I've seen people literally buying out dogs They don't interact with them during COVID also, by the way. Now I think awareness बहुत ज़्यादा आ गई है. COVID के time पे there were so many dogs that were adopted क्योंकि लोगों को पता लग गया लॉकडाउन 3 months के लिए चलने वाला है. एंड so many abandoned cases जी 3 महीना रख लिया, अब we don't want to think they've left the dogs on the streets and gone off because 3 महीने आपका टाइम पास हो गया. Stop making a joke out of this at the end of it. They have exactly the kind of emotions we do as humans. The only difference between an animal and us is that they can't communicate and we can, right? So let's stop making a joke out of it firstly. Stop treating them like toys. I feel like adopt own shop. We have enough animals in the country out on the streets, out in foster homes, out in shelters. Let's empty that out instead of actually sitting out there supporting illegal ways of these breeders who are making money on these bachas. And by the end of it, the saddest part is that after literally using that mother, they are discarded after 7-8 years when they actually need them the most. They are just thrown on the streets in the worst condition possible. These are like breeder discards. So please adopt, don't shop.
So D stands for discipline, and somewhere I think that matters a lot in Nikita's life. So I see endless posts about fitness and working out and gym stuff. So that actually is a very, very important space.
Yeah, I'm a
in your
fauji
life.
bacha. I feel like literally we're grilled since we were little kids. I remember Papa waking us up in the morning at 4 o'clock. We're, getting our braces on to go for horse riding. And my mama would literally be like, stop torturing the kids and this and that. And एक होता है ना बचपन में you feel like अरे यार. But I think honestly, there would be no other way I would have liked it to be. So that sort of like sports, physical activity and fitness has been an integral part of our life right from the beginning. Yeah. So I feel like since we were little kids only, first obviously it was sports. And then at that time, it was like, jo mummy papa bol rahe bhai, aap karo chupchap se. Then by the end of it, I feel I was dealing with a lot of body positivity issues and stuff like that as I started growing
I
up.
wanted to elaborate on that.
Yeah. So post that, I felt like I met a couple of people who kind of directed me in, and that's when my, from sports basically, I got into gymming, working out, lifting weights, and I felt like I was a really lean kid. Like I had a lot of body issues, and obviously at that age when you're, looking at people around you developing, by the end of it, when you look at yourself, somewhere you feel like a misfit, right? So I had a lot of issues out there, and I used to literally cover it up by saying, "Bhai, मैं तो tomboy हूँ, मैं तो ये हूँ वो है," but internally I felt like it was affecting my mental health in the long run. So basically, I remember during like when I started working out and stuff like that, you need a trainer to end up. I think the most important thing when you start off is your technique and your posture and all of that bit, right? So I remember about 11, 12 years is when I started my fitness journey in terms of gym, like getting to the gym, right? And I mean, the coach's name is Manish. He literally, got me really dedicated, pushed in, told me just be at it for like another 2-3 months until you end up, you get stronger, you start seeing changes. The moment that started altering in, I felt like, for the longest time, I felt like as if I didn't have control over things, right? And then suddenly when you kind of start putting in that work, you see the changes at the end of it. It is drastic and life-changing. And I feel like over a course of time, physically, definitely things changed in a better way where it got me comfortable in my skin. But I feel like it also, I think for everybody mentally also. Like today, honestly speaking, after 11 or 12 years of workout regime, I feel like really today the byproduct is to end up being fit, but I feel like what it does for your mind is definitely something that people should indulge in. Yeah, give yourself that 1 hour.
So 11 and 12 years of working consistently towards fitness, that's just the number of gyms that I've left, which I never joined in the first place. So
I went on your behalf. Yeah.
Please continue.
Yeah.
You need to be the Dravid of consistency.
I mean, I'm just doing my bit. I feel like, you have like 24 hours in a day. For God's sake, please don't tell me for any XY reason. For any XYZ reason, people are like, we don't have time. Nahi hamare paas wo nahi. You have time for everything. At the end of the day, it's just about taking out, maybe not even if you can't take out an hour, it could be just half an hour for yourself. But I feel like you deserve that. Give yourself the best at the end of it. And like the way I said, life aapko rent pe mili hui hai. I literally look at it like that. I don't take life very seriously. That's why probably I'm touching multiple aspects of life as well. Because I feel like ek life aapko mili hai. Do as much as you possibly can. Explore, go out there, figure it out. And don't take it very seriously at the end of the day. You just have one life, live it. And obviously live it with a purpose. Yeah.
So just live it. Not a Michael Jackson song, but the mantra of life. Moving forward, I just want to stress a bit more about the whole experience of becoming a commercial pilot and getting that license, which is not the easiest thing in the world to do.
So tell me about it.
Yeah. So what fascinated you about flying?
I think my father, like he was the closest He was, so my father basically, like we had mentioned, he was serving the Indian Air Force for 25 years. So he was a fighter pilot. And I remember growing up around aircrafts when I was a child. And every time he would end up going for the sorties, I remember just sitting, like there's a picnic situation happening and I'm looking at the, aircrafts taking off and I'm like, ye karna, ye, this, I have to end up, flying these planes one day. And obviously at that time I didn't have enough information in hand to end up realizing that women can't become fighter pilots back in the days. So मेरा मतलब my sister का I think it was very clear from the beginning उनको डॉक्टर बनना है. For me it was very clear that I want to become a pilot, but I wanted to become a fighter pilot. So in fact my father started teaching me when I was in 11th, the entire course that we have for becoming a commercial pilot's license. I settled at that. I'm like, bhai, fighter nahi, theek hai, we'll go commercial, right? Since my father now, post the Air Force, he ended up retiring and now he's flying commercial. So I said, chalo, we'll settle for a little lesser. And by the end of it, I think in 11th, my father started teaching me alongside. I remember I had my boards on the 26th of March. I'm not kidding you. They were on 20th, I was in flying school. Literally, my father was like, I'm not even going to leave itna sa gap for her to end up thinking she needs to do anything else apart from flying. So within my last boards got done, next day packed my saman, I was in Raipur flying. And it was my passion. I wanted to become I think anything related to the sky was definitely something that would fascinate me. So it started with I want to be a fighter pilot. Then I remember the downboard of my bed. I used to end up making spacecrafts, and I'm like, I'm going to get to NASA, and I'm going to become an astronaut and stuff like that. So dreams were definitely like, मेरे को उड़ना है भाई life में अपने.
So taking a cue from the word skies, it's kind of a personal recommendation to our listeners and watchers and viewers. Do definitely make time for this amazing movie called Reach for the Skies. It actually chronicles the life of the amazing British aviator Douglas Bader, who my father introduced me to.
Oh, lovely.
And so it's genuinely like a very scintillating movie. Must make time for that. And moving on further, I have another question for you.
Yeah.
And I've been bombarding you with questions all this afternoon, and you've been extremely patient in answering those.
I'm loving it.
Are you? Yeah. Right. So, any message that you have to avid youngsters and those who perhaps may want to do a bit more conscientiously towards, standing up for these quiet, innocent lives who don't have, unlike us, word sentences and vowels to explain themselves?
See, all I would end up saying is that I'm not going out there today. Obviously, we're talking about a specific topic related to animal welfare because that is something that I'm committing my life towards. But again, I feel like it doesn't necessarily have to be animal welfare for everybody, right? At the end of the day, pick up some purpose. I feel like हम इतना कुछ लेते रहते हैं. By, God's grace, there's a lot that we're getting. So I feel like just a form of giving back. It should be your seva at the end of the day. It should be your purpose that literally drives you towards wanting a change. You've come on this planet, you need to have at least some form of purpose. I feel like people have become so sucked into just living their own life at the end of it, which is not bad either. Like I always tell a lot of people, animal welfare is a part of my life. It's not my whole life because there are many facets of my life that I would like to end up exploring. So it's a part of my life which I very dedicatedly, very sincerely put in a couple of hours in the day to end up bringing whatever, positive change or little change I can. Or sab thoda towards any cause. Yeah. It could be women empowerment, it could be animal welfare, it could be anything at all that you resonate with. But I feel like एक चीज, just pick up one little cause that you end up giving back to. अगर आप 100 रुपए कमा रहे हो every month ki bhaiya I'm going to put 100 rupees into that so that can end up impacting and bringing about a bigger change. So live with a purpose and live with a cause is what I would tell everybody. अपना party भी करो, go out, chill with your friends, do all of that. We're all doing all of that. So live a wholesome life at the end of it, but please end up picking up a purpose and a cause.
It actually makes sense because, and I'm glad you actually brought that point up, because be the change you want to be. And at the same time, just stop saying, bhaiya change hai kya? Because you have to change.
Yes. If you move, things will also move. Yeah. So stop complaining about things. At the end of it, like the way I said, you are a human. That is your superpower. You have, you can end up actually bringing about the change. Stop sitting and complaining. Take things in your own hands and then figure it out from there. And God is above. If your intention is right, He'll guide you through.
Reminds me a lot of the movie called Pay It Forward. Sorry, my life is sometimes just driven by these analogies which, put into cinema, Bollywood and all that kind of stuff. But there's this beautiful movie, Kevin Spacey and Helen Hunt starrer. So, you do one act of kindness and then it spreads like a chain. So it's kind of a chain reaction of goodness, niceness, humanity at the end of the day. Not vanity. But we
do vanity as well, but do humanity as well, my friends.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I just have this one final question before we round up this show, and it is that who are your role models, if at all there are any?
I think I'll start off with my grandparents and my parents, definitely. Because I feel like, honestly, like we had started off right in the beginning also, if it wasn't for them actually, supporting us through these things, because I see a lot of parents discouraging their kids. Like for me, personally speaking, animal welfare is something where, even my parents could have been like, beta, don't touch that dog, gande kutte hain, ye hai, kaat lenge aapko and all of that bit. They were encouraging enough. They're like, dude, you have to end up living amongst them. God has put them on the planet. God has put you on the planet. And पुराने ज़माने में like the way I said, पहले रोटी गाय की निकलती थी, आखिरी कुत्ते की निकलती थी. आज के टाइम पे everything is like वो स्वार्थ आ गया लोगों में, right? Everything is like I, me, myself is the new concept of living. So I feel like my parents, right from the beginning, they literally, the way they kind of exposed me and my sister, I'd rather say, even like with my grandparents taking me out to end up feeding animals at the end of it, learning to coexist. Like today, I'm not kidding you, they could be a street vendor. I go and I love to meet people. I'll just sit down on in the middle of the road with like a juice wale bhaiya. I want to know about his life. Then there'll be a dog there. I'll be chilling with him. So I've just been able to. I have friends everywhere. I have friends everywhere. So I feel like at the end of the day, definitely, the compassion and the passion that I have is definitely thanks to my parents and my grandparents. I owe it completely to them because they've always been the wind beneath our wings. They've not been the ones trying to cut it through.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So that was Nikita, full of life, full of compassion, not compassion, क्योंकि ज़िंदगी में ज़्यादा passion और compassion दोनों बहुत ज़रूरी हैं. And thank you so much for your time. It's been a
Thank you
pleasure.
for having me. Yeah, this has been
And,
great, great, great. And I just hope whoever's listening to this right now, whatever little, it could be just helping one animal out there. You have it in you. You can do it. So just get out there. Don't wait for other people to end up doing it for you. आप अपने हाथ में control लो and please bring about the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah, and stay tuned for more engaging and awesome content from all of us here at WhatsApp Live. Thank you for your time, and until we see you again.
Thank you.